To the Westwood Planning Board meeting. My name is David Atkins. I'll be chairing the meeting tonight. All meetings of the Planning Board are recorded by Westwood Media Center and broadcast live on local cable television channels Comcast 12 and Verizon 42. Meetings are also available on the Westwood Media Center YouTube channel. And if this were an in-person meeting, I would ask anyone wishing to record the meeting to please identify themselves. But since the meeting is remote, that notification is not necessary. You can record it if you wish. While people are unmuted, please turn off your cell phone ringers to eliminate background noise. We had some complaints about the last meeting because there was some background noises going on. So just please mute yourself unless you're going to be speaking. We're going to begin this meeting with only the board members and the professional staff unmuted. And as the chair recognizes individuals to speak, we will unmute them. Board members may choose to mute themselves and they're not speaking. So before we begin, let me outline our process. And I will actually let me call the meeting to order first of all by doing a roll call of the members here. So Mr. Paff.
Here.
And Mr. DeLay, I believe we knew that he was not able to make the meeting. Ms. Conant?
Here.
Mr. Gotti?
Here.
And myself, Dave Atkins. So I'll outline our process. So our planning board meetings typically consist of three types of agenda items. We consider applications that have been submitted to the board. We conduct public hearings about those applications, and there's a public comment portion required in that. We have other applications that are not a formal public hearing, and the public will have an opportunity to comment at the board's discretion. And third, we have sort of administrative review items where board members will discuss issues, deal with items like approval of meeting minutes, future agendas, hearing updates from the planning department staff and other boards. So prior to each agenda item, the chair will announce the item and provide some descriptive context. For applications, the chair will invite the applicant to address the board and give us a short presentation summarizing what's being requested. Board members have already received the application materials prior to the meeting and will have reviewed them. So the board members may then ask clarifying questions during and following that presentation. Professional staff, outside experts will present their research, assessments, and comments to the board. And if the issue includes a public hearing, the board will then proceed to the public comment portion of the hearing. In this remote meeting format, residents and guests may participate in several ways. Attendees will be recognized to speak over the Zoom meeting application or from a telephone dial-up. Additionally, comments may be submitted by email or regular mail prior to the meeting. When we come to the part of the meeting, I'll remind everyone of the process, or Abby will describe the details there. Following the public comment portion, the board will deliberate and make a decision or continue the hearing to a future date. All of our remote meetings require that votes be by roll call, so I'll go through the list of board members. When a motion and a second has been made, the chair will ask if there's any further discussion before proceeding to the roll call vote, and will then restate the results of the vote. And it's the practice of the board to keep public hearings open until the decision is made in order to allow consideration of additional material that may be requested during the deliberation process and to allow for additional public comment as new issues arise. So I don't believe there are any changes to the agenda. The first issue on the agenda has to do with 472 and 480 Summer Street. This is a meeting to request a modification to a shared driveway approved plan and a request for temporary occupancy. So just a little background on this item. I think I'm the only board member who was here when the original special permit was granted. And we discussed in detail over 4 meetings over the course of 3 years ago, a lot of issues that abutting residents had raised with respect to the access road. There's a shared driveway, and then there's an access road, and there were a lot of concerns about, would UPS trucks be able to come through there? Would that turn into a throughway? And so a lot of the discussion involved eliminating that problem, as well as residents observing that they were concerned about what might be built on the property back from the road, and they wanted a visual buffer. There was a lot of concern during the discussions, I remember, about the preserving trees. The driveway was there was a lot of trees and it was very wooded at the time. I had a chance to go out there today, and a lot of things have changed. So we will let the folks kind of update us on this, and we'll start with this. I'd like to ask Abby McCabe, our town planner, to kind of to summarize what's been going on. And first, in terms of the planning department staff have been working with the property owners here, and they're bringing to us a request. So I would like her to kind of summarize that background there, and then we would hear from the property owners, which is the Muhanas, and the Andersons. And so I think after that, we would have board members could ask questions to clarify what's been presented so far. And then we may have some of the abutting residents who wish to make public comments. And so we'll have, even though it's not a public hearing, we will take public comments at that point. And then we'll deliberate and discuss what the actions are. So with that outline, Abby, I'd ask you to summarize what the town staff have been doing related to this, or any other background that will help us before. And then we'll go directly on to the applicants.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think they're having some trouble logging in, so I was resending them the info. So hold on 1 minute. I'm just getting some messages that they're having trouble logging in. Did everyone else had okay logging in to the meeting? Right? Everyone's here. The applicants aren't able to get in. So if you just don't mind me, I'm just trying to make sure that they have the right info. Sorry, I'm just giving them the phone number too, but see if they can call into the meeting.
They should be able just to go to like zoom.com and put in your meeting ID.
Yes. Just seeing, I don't know if they're not here yet. I've resent it a couple times. I don't know. Do you want to take it? I don't know. Should you do like maybe the minutes first for a minute? I just want to wait till they get in to the meeting on this, or should I start with the background? I know. I mean,
why don't you provide a little bit of the background then?
Okay. So a shared driveway special permit, that is something, we don't have these too often. We've only had, this was the most recent one, was approved in 2017. And it had been a number of years before that since the last one. So none of you, except for Dave, has been the only board member who's reviewed, this section in detail. There's a section in the zoning bylaw that allows the planning board to consider sharing driveways for more than one lot by a special permit. And that clearly states it has to comply with the town's zoning bylaw and subdivision rules and regulations. In this application in 2017, the property owner, sorry, they're still having trouble getting into the meeting. Sorry, they're just sending the message. In 2017, they came to the planning board to request this special permit. There was the Muhanas, Mr. and Mrs. Muhana, were the original applicants. They live at 480 High Street. There's an existing house there. It's the last lot on Summer Street before you get to Westfield Street. The house is set back a little bit up on the hill. They had previously received a shared driveway special permit back in 2005, but that was never constructed and that special permit expired. So in 2017, they came back to you and they were working to get the shared driveway special permit to allow a shared driveway with 2 additional house lots. There was the proposal was to create a lot in the back that is now been numbered 472, and then a new house on Summer Street. That number is 476. That hasn't been constructed yet, but that's the third house, the second house that's yet to be constructed. The lot itself was 6 acres, is around 6 acres. All 3 lots have existing, meet the minimum frontage requirements on Summer Street. And so they meet the minimum lot size and minimum frontage requirements. And that was done through what we call an A&R, an approval not required plan. So that's essentially saying that approval under the subdivision control law is not required because the size of lot exists. It doesn't need the full subdivision approval. It was done through an A&R plan, which essentially creates the lots, the new lot lines. But the shared driveway was proposed to be located in the same location as the existing driveway that used to serve just 480 Summer Street. But in the future, with the shared driveway, there was a number of public hearings in 2017. It was May, and then it continued on with the planning board and was ultimately approved in August 2017. The planning board ultimately found that the shared driveway was beneficial to the town because the lots are allowed by right through this A&R plan. Typically, the process would be once you have an A&R plan, you would then apply for a curb cut permit from Public Works Department. But the planning board found that this special permit was beneficial because there would only be 1 curb cut on Summer Street rather than 2 additional ones. They thought also the location that was near the corner before you got to Westfield Street intersection was a very positive benefit. Also, that would reduce the amount of total disturbance, would allow for less trees to be torn down to create 2 additional driveways. There was also concerns during the 2017 public hearing process about vehicle use of the existing emergency access way that goes out the back. There was and still is an existing paved way from the end of that driveway that goes out, an easement that goes out over and onto Westfield Street. So there was concern at that time from the neighbors and the abutters about additional vehicles going out the back. So the planning board ultimately added some extra conditions and imposed conditions and some requirements to be completed with this project, and felt that was a benefit because with the special permit, the planning board has authority to impose reasonable conditions. But if it was just an A&R plan, the planning board has no authority to add additional restrictions, or the planning board doesn't generally review single family house lots at all during an A&R plan. It's really approved if it meets, the planning board has to approve it if it meets frontage requirements. So ultimately the planning board approved this special permit in 2017. And then how the typical process works is prior to an occupancy permit, the building department reviews everything but asks all the other departments to sign off on the on the occupancy permit. So last month, in early August, I was notified that the first house, this is the house in the back, the new one, 472, was looking for an occupancy permit. They were done with their house construction. And when I went out there, I realized that not all the work was done. So not all aspects of the planning board's approval was completed. So I was not able to sign off on the occupancy permit at that time in early August. So generally how the process works is either all aspects of the planning board's approval all items listed as conditions in the plan, or all items on the plan have to be completed prior to an occupancy permit. Since that time, so there was the owner of 480 Summer Street was the original applicant. They still live in the house at 480 Summer Street, but then there is the new owner of the new house, 472. That's the house that was just recently built by the Andersons, and they are looking to move in. They've sold their other home, so they reached out to us about how to work with them so that they could get into their new home, since they did sell their home. So over the last few weeks, or last couple of weeks, we've been trying to work with the new owners, the Andersons, and the owners of the 480 Summer Street. They were the original applicants, and trying to work to get them to have all, either all the work has to be completed. Some of the items are taking a bit longer, so we suggested coming back to the planning board with a request for a temporary occupancy. But also, we asked, in these situations, we would want to make sure the work gets done. So we have been working with them, and provided in your packet was a draft agreement that outlines all the work that still needs to be completed. So we've kind of gone through those with both owners, the owner of 480 and 472 Summer Street, about what needs to be done, with along with a clear timeline of when that to be finished. And we had in the agreement some clear dates. We think the work can be completed within 30-60 days, so we put that time frame in there. And then if the work is not completed by December, so the request to you is for a temporary occupancy, provided that this agreement is executed and funds provided that amount for the amount of the remaining work, which we've estimated. We've had our town engineer go out and give us an estimate for that. So the request before you is temporary occupancy, provided there's a fully executed agreement with all parties, which would be both owners, and the funds provided in hand prior to that temporary occupancy. And then the agreement outlines clearly when the work needs to be done, and that when it is done, myself and staff, the conservation agent and town engineer, would go out and do a final inspection. And if all items are completed, we could then return the funds. If we get to December 1st, was what we put in there as the final completion date. If we get to December 1st, then the temporary occupancy would be expired. They would have to vacate, and then the town could then take the funds to complete the work. So that's the intro, but let me just see if they're able to get into the meeting. Are they here yet? And then actually I should say, and then we also found during the site visit, there was a couple field changes that were made that weren't shown on the original approved plans. So that's, there was some grading changes, mostly in the rear of the new house, 472, some grading changes that, because there was a pool and a basketball court added. And then the driveway for where that one new house connects to the shared driveway is different than where it was approved, where it was shown in the approved plans. So that's the two requests before you. One is for modification of the original plans, and the second request is for temporary occupancy prior to completing all the work, provided, with an agreement and funds provided.
So Abby, I know it's kind of like you're doing two things at once. Are they trying to call you or text you or something?
Let me see. There is a number here that's a call-in, I think. Let's see if the number. There's a number that ends in 1037 that's called in. Is this one of the applicants? Hello. Can they hear us? The number that ends in 1037?
I think they're still muted.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, is this Mr. Mahana?
Yes, this is Mr. Mohan.
Hi,
Hi.
sorry, the difficulty logging in. This is, I don't know if you heard the summary introduction at all.
We didn't, we had little problem.
All right, let's see, is Brian Anderson here? Let's see.
I mean, they're definitely connected some other way because you're getting that echo. So they're connected twice. They're probably connected via computer and or a phone, and they've dialed in. And now it appears they've disappeared.
The challenges of technology.
Sorry, hold on. Sorry, I'm just trying to resend the numbers. I don't know where they went.
My hunch is that mom's iPhone may be them in the attendee list,
Okay, let me check.
which is why we were hearing.
Oh, okay, yes, you're right.
So
Hello, is this Mr. or Miss Mahana? Is this a vet? Oh, here's another Michael in here. Is this? There's a name, Michael Mohana, is this you? Is this Michael Mohana here? Hello, Mr. Mohana?
Yeah, so Michael is still muted. Let me unmute Michael. Okay. Michael, you're unmuted. Can you?
Yeah, you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank God. We're on. All right.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Okay. Where are we?
So I explained to them the background, the history of the 2017 approval. So you're here tonight requesting the two things: the temporary occupancy with an agreement and funds provided. Also, there was a modification. There was, we've changes done out in the field to lot 2. There were 3 items. That was, the addition of the basketball court, the pool, and the grading changes related to those items, and then also where the driveway connects to from the new house 472, where it connects to your driveway.
Yes.
So there's 2 items for the planning board to consider.
Abby, is there also not a fence involved?
No.
No fence. Well, the basketball court I think has a fence on it. Yep. So it's the basketball court surface, and there's a fence on the basketball court.
Yeah, I made some.
Okay, I have my son-in-law, he's listening with us. Ray Safi.
Okay. I couldn't hear you.
I have my son-in-law listening with us. His name is Ray Safi.
Oh, okay. Ray Safi. Okay. You want me
Yes.
to bump him in? Okay.
Please.
Yep. Okay.
All right, I hear. Hi, Ray.
Hi,
Hi. Okay, you see everybody, Ray?
I see everyone, yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right, Abby, now you're saying regarding the gate, okay, the one that was ruined by the water. We're talking about the basketball court, the one, you know, right on the driveway, okay? And also we have an issue with the existing driveway, the one going to Brian's house. It's not, that was the proven plan from the planning board on 2017. Okay, and when he did that driveway, he never discussed it with us, never discussed it with the town, and the town saying, no, this is the wrong way, okay? And another thing regarding the driveway all the way down to the street, okay, and 16 feet wide and 2 feet crushed stone. That's his responsibility. Okay. And also I have an attorney. I was talking to him today. I sent him all the information. All right. And he's going to review the case and he's going to represent me for the next meeting.
So this is Dave Atkins of the Planning Board. Let me try to focus this a little bit. So as I understand it, we have a request to approve the changed, we have a request to approve the driveway change and to come up with a way to issue a temporary occupancy permit, because what's currently been built does not match the plans. And so the building inspector cannot grant a certificate of occupancy and the new homeowner cannot move in. So we need to work out a solution to the impasse or they won't be able to move into the house. That's how, so I believe you're coming to us tonight to request that. We modify, but you just said you didn't want the driveway that way, so I'm not sure that.
No, because he really knew that he can't move into his house unless this issue is solved. And I don't know why it waited till last minute. And he knew the plan, he saw the plan, what was supposed to be and where it's built. We don't have any marks from the surveyor to know. And by looking, only the day we had the conference call, I received the text from Abby, the picture, so we had an idea. Now, I always depended when someone built that there's no way they finish without inspection earlier. I didn't think wait till the end to have an inspection. I don't know how he built all this. He had engineer, he had lawyer, he had. Why did we get to this point?
So Abby, and I don't, Mr. Mahana, I don't mean to cut you off and all or sound kind of curt, but it seems that Mr. Anderson is the one who needs to be telling us why he wants us to make a decision here tonight. And is he able to be on the call or kind of what's going on?
I think they're having trouble logging in. I've sent the number several times, the dial-in number.
All right, we could, and we have people who came to speak to this issue as well. I don't think it's really appropriate to proceed without hearing from the applicant who is requesting us to do something. So we could move on to a couple of it's funny, tonight's the one night where we only have one real major item on the agenda, but we could move to the other items. Other board members, what do you think about that?
Well, I couldn't understand a third of what, or 2/3 of what the gentleman was saying. So I don't think I could move on. I didn't hear even what he said. Is he the occupant of the new home or the original home?
The
Well,
Mr.
Where?
Sorry.
We are the original owner. The house,
Okay.
480 Summer Street, okay? And I think, yeah, Mr. David, I wanna mention something. We already talked to our attorney today. If you wanna leave this issue to the next meeting, then that time, my attorney and Brian Anderson attorney will talk to each other regarding the issue we have. Maybe we could solve it, without having other problem.
I say, please, I have no problem if he wants to move into his house, if he agrees on the conditions, the plan of 2017. I need him to agree on everything was on the plan and everything when we signed papers with him, when he bought the lot. I like to go by law, everything what it's supposed to be.
And I think that's kind of the default situation here is the board approved a plan and it was, I remember, 4 long meetings and then there's a long history before that. So we have a plan. What's been done does not match that plan and therefore not able to issue the certificate of occupancy. So I think we really, it doesn't sound like the original. So Mr. Muhana, I remember you were the original.
Mohana, please. Mohana, thank you.
You were the original applicant here, which came to at least 1 or 2 of our meetings and your attorneys and all. We worked out some details
Yes.
3 years ago. So I think we really need to get Mr. Anderson on this. And so, I can't see how to move anything forward right now on this issue.
Hold on, I'm trying to get them in. Hold on. Yep, sorry, I'm still working with them, trying to get them in.
I think there was a reason when you approved the plan to put the driveway on the plan where it's supposed to be. Oh, now I see myself.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Yes, so there was, at the time of the 2017 special permit review, since there was a lot of concern about additional vehicles going out the back on that emergency access, the planning board had imposed conditions of installing an additional gate. So a gate at the top of the easement, kind of close to their circle turnaround area. Also to install signage that says no trespassing. There's also a gate, an existing gate there out the back on the Mohana's land that has been out there. There are some conditions about having a plastic strap to keep it closed, and that only the Mohanas of the existing house at 480 had rights to that access. And the idea was for the planning, the planning board's approved plan, the idea was for the shared driveway for the new house to be further away from that emergency access to reduce the possibility of cars going out that way. Because there was concerns about additional visitors or the future property owners or delivery vans, anyone delivering food or packages. We didn't want them to get concerned about which way to go. So the idea was to keep them going directly to the new houses and not going down that emergency access road. But we did learn that the driveway for the new house in the back at 472 was slightly reconfigured. It didn't connect. It doesn't connect to the emergency access, but it doesn't connect in the location where it was shown in the 2017 plan.
Also, I'd like to know, is his driveway right now on the easement with the neighbor or it's off of it? because it's different place altogether. And there's no lines, no marks. So we don't know if he's on the easement or not.
Yeah, he's on the easement right now to go to his house. He should be like 15 feet
We're
from
not
the
sure. We
circle.
need the surveyor to know if he is on the easement. He might be using the easement right now, where his driveway is. We don't know where the easement starts.
All right, why don't I suggest what we do is let's stay on the line, because if I say if we move on, and then he'll suddenly appear, right? So we don't want to lose anybody. Let's give it a couple minutes, and in the meantime, let's move to a different agenda item. Let's take the meeting minutes approval from the previous meeting, so in the packet we had the draft transcript from January 28th and August 18th meetings. Does anyone have any suggested changes or discussion about those items?
I don't.
Is everyone okay with kind of taking this out of order too? I guess should ask.
Yeah.
Any other?
I mean, I don't see any other option, Dave. So, I mean, I've got no issue moving on to other business items to keep the meeting moving. And at the end,
all right, let's just, everybody, the others can stay on the line. So now we've moved on to the meeting minutes review, and I'm asking if there's any changes to January 28th and August 18th meeting minutes. And if not, or if then someone could make a motion to approve them.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from August 18th. I'm not going to weigh in on the 28th, Dave. So I'm making a motion to approve the August 18th, 2020 Planning Board meeting minutes as submitted.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Gotti and a second from Mr. Paff. Is there any discussion of the August 18 meeting minutes? So I see no discussion. We'll have a roll call vote to approve those minutes. Mr. Paff,
Yes.
Ms. Conant,
Yes.
Mr. Gotti,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. And Mr. DeLay is not here, so he's an abstention. So those minutes are approved. Now let's go on to the January 28th. So this is the draft transcript, and I believe, Ms. Conant, you had some edits to that. And are those, what's the status of, or have they been incorporated into this, or where do we stand?
Yeah. Yes, they have.
Okay. Is there anything else we need to do with those minutes from January, for that transcript from January 28th? Then I would take a motion from someone to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the transcription of the meeting from January 28th in lieu of minutes as the documentation of that meeting.
Second.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Paff and a second from Ms. Conant, and we'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Paff,
Aye.
and there's well, yeah. And,
Yes. Sorry.
and Ms. Conant,
Yes.
Mr. Gotti,
I'm abstaining.
and I will vote yes as well. So those the transcript is approved as the meeting minutes by 3 votes in favor, 1 abstention, and 1 is not here. So that's that item. Abby, have we had any luck connecting with the applicant for the first item?
No luck yet. I gave him Nora's phone number to maybe try Nora's desk phone here, but no calls yet.
All right, let's so we'll
Dave, can I ask Abby a question just to clarify? I'm getting from tonight, is there contention between the two homeowners here about the location of the new driveway? I wasn't under the impression that there was an issue between the homeowners.
We did
Is that the
not
case
know
here?
it.
I was asking Ms. McCabe.
Oh, I mean, for me, I mean, I think that's really a question for the applicant. You know, I think last week we were under the impression that the modification was to allow the driveway in its current location, which is different than the 2017 approval. But it sounds like now, you know, I talked to Mr. and Mrs. Mohana this morning, and they would like to see the driveway configured in the way it was approved in 2017.
And that would be Mr. Anderson's responsibility to correct in this situation is.
I believe so. I mean, I guess it's
So that,
I mean, it was his, you know, it's his lot and it was his building permit. So he's now the owner of that lot.
so I don't see anything under this passbook account that indicates anything about redoing a driveway.
Right. So if that is what happens, then that would need to be added because we drafted this agreement on Thursday and Friday after we had a phone call with the Andersons and the Mahanas on Thursday, and so we drafted an agreement based on the plans going forward with the way they were configured today. But the agreement did include a requirement for an as-built plan to be provided that would be prepared by a professional engineer or surveyor that shows all the changes made. Also, it requires an updated drainage plan because we believe the changes made in that backyard at 472 have led to some flooding onto the abutting properties on Westfield Street. We did hear from the abutters on Westfield Street that they are experiencing flooding out the back over that easement onto the Westfield Street abutting properties. So the agreement is written to include required an updated drainage plan to be submitted and reviewed and approved by the town engineer, myself, and the conservation agent. Also with a requirement that, you know, once it is approved plan, they would have to install it, and then it would be subject to final inspection by the town staff to rectify the flooding issues. So also another aspect of the approved plans that couldn't be confirmed in the field was there was a requirement for a landscape buffer. It was 50 feet in the back, in the rear, and then 20 feet on the side. We just couldn't verify that in the field, so we did ask for that to be clearly shown on the as-built plan. And the agreement also calls for, if that buffer was not maintained, that a landscaping plan to restore the landscape buffer would then be required. Also with plantings that would be 20 feet in height to replicate the mature trees that were previously there.
So we had a problem, we have a solution, but now this driveway this is a new development, right? That's not represented anywhere in this solution. And it's a fairly sizable issue to relocate a driveway. Are we ready to hear this tonight? If this is a new development between the applicant and the homeowner? Are we there?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here, but Mr.
No,
Person-
not you. No,
Oh, I'm sorry.
are we ready to decide on this?
Doesn't
It sounds
sound.
like there's a real big thing floating out there with this driveway. Am I wrong?
No, I mean, the draft agreement that we were sent doesn't seem to address that, doesn't.
No, I know, that's what I mean.
Yes, and with that missing and with the other party missing, this seems like this needs to be moved.
Yeah, I think it's,
Mr. Chair, if I could just tell you that the other party is getting onto the speakerphone now, so they're attempting to call in. If they're able to call in, I will page that in and we can have that discussion. I believe that if everyone could come to an agreement, if it means that the driveway has to be redone, then the funds in the passbook account would simply have to be increased to cover the cost of that. But I think we need all the parties to discuss whether that's something that is a possibility or not. So I think you have the choices of maintaining the plan that's already been approved and having the Andersons meet the terms of that plan and having the Mohanas do the work that they intended to do to meet the terms of that plan, or going forward with something different that's a modification. But I think the only way to get to a resolution is to have that discussion. And I know that there are several abutters that are online here waiting to weigh in on that as well. So there are several issues. If you can just be patient for a few more minutes, I've sent them a conference line number that they're trying to call into my desk phone, and then I will patch them in to this call.
Thank you, Nora. All right. Let's see. Well, we'll give that a minute here. I would try to do something else quickly, but nothing. I don't think we can do anything quickly. So the other item.
Okay, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
allow me to inform you that there'll be no fall town meeting. The select board voted tonight not to have a fall town meeting. So any zoning amendments you are thinking about doing will go forward in the annual town meeting in the spring, hopefully in early May. But time will tell about that. But that's one thing that you should be aware of.
And so that was, did they just vote tonight on that? I know it was
Yes.
yes. So no fall town meeting.
I have Rosemary Trainee on the line now, representing Brian Anderson. Rosemary, can you hear? Can you all hear Rosemary?
No.
Speak again, please. Can you hear that?
That's not going to work.
No, I'm not to the point of conversation, no.
No, I think we're going to need to postpone this to the September 22nd meeting and just make sure ahead of that meeting that we have that everyone's on the line, that we can verify the connection. And then for the residents who came to this meeting, I feel bad that they came here with a lot. Hopefully they'll be able to make it to that meeting, and they can also submit emails and all. But we need a full discussion of this issue. Like the easiest thing to do would be just to build it the way the plan was originally designed, because it took like 5 months to get that decision.
Exactly.
So would someone like to move to postpone this to September 22nd?
Yeah, you look like you want to say something.
Well,
Yeah.
I just saw there were some raised hands in the audience. I mean, I know I had let some of the abutters know about tonight.
Yes. All right. Why don't we let's take. I'm hesitant to have a public comment when the person hasn't even, the original person has not been able to make their case. However, I think we can certainly take the concerns of people and we can listen to what people have to say, and especially if they're not able to make it to the next meeting. So do other board members think that's a good approach tonight?
I understand what you're saying. I just want to make sure we're not stepping on Mr. Anderson's opportunity out of turn. He hasn't made his case. He hasn't said anything, and I don't know what the residents are going to chime in about.
I mean, for us too, it's like for us, it's really like someone needs to ask us to make changes or to do something. We really don't want to get into like redoing this project. We really don't want to get into like having to reevaluate anything. It's just a question of what's the best use of our time now, and the best use of everyone's time. Any other board member thoughts? Chris, are you saying?
My only thing to add, Dave, is that it's my impression from what was on the agenda was to permit the changes sort of as built, and then issue a temporary CO, because it sounds like they have sold and have moved out of their house. So are they now sort of in limbo. Was the, the need for the temporary to be able to get them into a residence. So, I don't know how else, Ab, you can get these guys on the line, but I agree with Chris. It would seem a little bit out of order to, have a bunch of public comment without the Andersons able to make their case.
It seems we have a process that we follow, and despite tonight's technical problems, I think we still need to adhere to the process. I feel bad for pushing it, but if it weren't for this issue with the driveway brought up, I thought we had a solution in place. But I think it would be improper to Mr. Anderson to hear public comment before he had a chance to present.
Do I have a chance to say one more thing? Before he sold his house and built this house, he knew, and he had the plan where the driveway was supposed to be. And it was built against that. And he knew he can't get into his house without the occupancy permit. And he knows a lot more than we do with technology and with everything. I wish my English was better to explain. And we were really happy with everything. It's just, he comes and talk to us and say he's gonna draw some agreement and never show back again. And he changes his mind. It's been like 3 times.
Great, thank you. Thank you for your comment. Does someone want to make a motion? Mr. Paff, do you want to move to?
I'll make a motion to continue this hearing till our September 22nd. Is that our next date? 7 o'clock by remote. Is that sufficient as a motion to continue?
Just a point of clarification, it's not a hearing. It's just an agenda item.
Oh, sorry. Changes to my motion.
And I do recognize, the technology, this is an awkward, unusual situation that we haven't, so I want to be fair to everyone involved. And we don't want to prejudice the Andersons, and we don't want to waste people's time who took time out to show up for this either. So let's, Mr. Paff made your motion. Would someone second that?
I'll second that.
So is there any further discussion? Then we'll have a roll call vote on the motion to postpone this discussion to our September 22nd meeting remotely, starting at 7 p.m. And I would recommend that we work out, people come like 15 minutes early and work out the technology.
Yes.
So let's see, so roll call of Mr. Paff.
Yes.
And Ms. Conant.
Yes.
Mr. Gotti.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So that passes 4 votes to none. Sorry, folks who came to the meeting. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the discussion of the fall town meeting and town meeting articles, which there will not be a fall town meeting. But I think the main takeaway from our last meeting was that we had asked for questions to submit for on the medical uses article. Or Abby or Pat, do you want to give an update on that process?
Pat, you're muted.
So,
But a little late. So several of you submitted some questions, and I've talked to a couple of you, and I recirculated an opinion letter that the town had gotten a while back. Ms. Kona, you had some very interesting questions, but I don't see them as legal questions as much as I see them as market-driven questions. So I had a conversation with Mr. Bailey, who's special town counsel for a number of things, and he declined taking this assignment. So I am now torn on how to get your questions answered, to be brutally honest about it. And perhaps a discussion with you, me, and Abby at some point in time might give me some clarification on where to go. I do not want to pay a lawyer to do market-based research. I don't think that's money well spent. But I understand the nature of your questions and why you're looking for that information. So maybe we can get there another way. That's kind of the way I'm thinking about it right now. But I'm open to all possibilities. So that's where I am on those issues at this point in time.
Right, and I think some of the questions can be answered with, the legal opinion that we have from Mr. Bailey from 2019, and then I think we can continue to work through some of the other ones. We have, touched on some of the questions in our past reviews, and then we can continue to work on it as we go forward. And my recommendation is that you spend the fall getting ready for the Springtown meeting to work on the medical. So I think we can continue to work on some of these questions. I uploaded the board's questions in the board's meeting packet today. That were the questions from all of you. Kind of what we've done in the past. In the past, we've seen this zoning bylaw come before you in a couple different forms. So I think we can, I think you tonight should talk about how you want to work on that. There were some discussions over the summer about creating a working group. I think a working group would be helpful so that you can meet, outside of the planning board meetings in a smaller setting where you're really focused on working on and looking at the details of the zoning. So that's really looking at the zoning language and where exactly you want to and not allow, where you want to allow and not allow those uses. So I think, sometimes in the past we've created, a subcommittee with no more than 2 planning board members, or a focused working group where you can meet, when people are available, and then report back to the planning board so that you can be ready in the, January for a Springtown meeting.
Yeah, Abby, I agree with you that I think we do need to start the work moving forward about if we are going to pursue this article, if the board does believe this is an article that needs to be addressed, or the issues brought in the article need to be addressed for our town, we can't wait to until December or November to start talking about assembling this, because we need to have this somewhat written by January, and a working group will need some time to assemble and do the hard thinking about where will we decide to zone these particular usages for our town. So I would like to move forward. And if it turns out the planning board doesn't want to address it, then maybe it's, chalk it up to having done the homework for, maybe down the line we'll need to do it. We can use some of the work done by the working group. But I really think that a working group needs to get going as soon as possible to come up with where we want to place these usages within our town. So I'm in agreement with you. I think we need to somehow create one, and we need to agree on how to do that. And I don't know. I don't know where we're gonna, how far out we're gonna be before we decide, yes, we want to pursue this as an article.
So the 2019 Dan Bailey opinion memo seemed very clear to answer the question as that was posed last time as to whether or not it was black or white, whether this was an issue that we should address. It was very clear in that, from what I read, that it is something we should address. And given that, I would agree with you, Chris, and Abby, that we should have some type of working group that goes out and studies it and comes back with a plan. a recommendation.
But to that end, I just want to reiterate, I don't think a working group is there to decide whether or not we zone this. I think the working group is there not for the writing of it, but for the simple fact of where we want to place this. Educate them roughly on our zoning, our current zoning, and where do they think this best fits. And then we can discuss the fallout from, oh, if you place it there, this is a possibility. If you place it there, this is a possibility. I don't want this working group deciding on whether or not we're addressing the zoning issue, because that's our job.
Looking at options.
It's not their job.
Right. It's looking at what the various options are.
Right. I think the working group is the presumption we're moving forward with an article, or
Correct.
they're going to operate with the presumption that we're moving forward with an article.
Ms. Conant, what are your thoughts on this?
I agree with Chris.
So who would like, why don't we just, we can have two people. So who wants to be on this working group?
I would be happy to be on it.
I'm perfectly willing to be on it as well, Dave. If
All right.
Only two.
All right, let's, and I would slightly disagree with Chris. I think so, so I will appoint the two of you to a working group, but I would like you to come back with a rationale, not a presumption that, this is the most important piece of zoning that we have to do, but kind of, that's part of this is explaining why, the Dan Bailey memo. I would be interested in sharing that, more of these details, being more transparent about that as well. But I would say let's start with those questions and see if they can be addressed. Because keeping in mind, at the end of the day, we're going to be going to FinCom and saying, here's the article, and I don't want another repeat of where we're not absolutely solid on the rationale behind it and everything. So I think it's obviously why spend time on it if it doesn't need to get done. But just remember that we're looking at 2/3 approval, and in order to get something like this passed. So that's
To that end, Dave, I have given this some thought also, and given that the select board took up an abbreviated version of this, I think it would behoove this board to help move its article forward through FinCom and town meeting to possibly present this as a joint article with the select board. I think it would do well to show our solidarity, our strength in numbers, that this truly is for people, understand the town exposure. This is something that we need to address, and this is the answer we've come up with. So I'm not saying we have to decide right now. I'm just putting it out there for kind of consumption and of the board members. Just think about it. You don't have to answer now. Just is a joint article something that you would agree with or not? I kind of laid out quickly why I believe it could help us.
That's something that Nora, Abby, or I could take to the select board to see if they're interested in working on something like that. I don't think it's out of the question, but I can't speak for them.
Yeah, no, I would not presume them to answer in the affirmative, but I guess I'm asking the board to think about, should we ask the select board to consider being a joint presenter with us?
I think it makes sense. I mean, it's kind of like when FinCom says they give their endorsement on a warrant article, right? That something should be passed. I think that shows that this is something that is in the best interest of the town in everybody's eyes.
all right. So I will appoint the two of you to this working group, and I think we should just we can have an update at the next meeting. It might just be a quick update, and then I'll leave it up to you to plot out a strategy for how we get to something for Springtown meeting.
What about the selection of individuals? Is that something this board wants to approve? I don't know how to go forward. I don't want to step out of turn here.
I think an informal, I think, Rob, Deb, jump in, but I think an informal approach is good to bring in as many perspectives as possible. I mean, we've talked about how people are busy with everything, but I think if we add a layer where we have to approve members of the task force,
Well, it's not a task force. I think we need to be clear on that. We're not assembling a task force, we're assembling a working group. And there is a distinction between the two, as I understand it. But this is not like the Islington Center Task Force that was highly scrutinized with selection and so forth. So not that this won't be,
why don't you come back to the next meeting with a proposed scope, essentially, to say, and who the members that the types of members, if you want to have a list of people, that's good. But I think that we can say that we want we want to hear voices from not just the usual boards and committees and things, but residents and people who have been skeptical of this issue. If there's a way to include them somehow in this process, I think maybe come back to the next meeting with a proposal for sort of the scope of that. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah, and I think, the scope is easy. I've already written down, thoughts about who would be the best serving here, and that, residents who live near the likely affected areas, someone involved in police, people are concerned with possible illegal activity or questionable activity at certain, facilities, healthcare professionals, I think would be a good perspective to hear from. As I said, residents near Fox Hill Village, possibly, residents near East Street, residents near the highway business, if there are any. But I think that we, already assembled a kind of a list of not names, but just the type of people we're looking for. People who understand zoning, I think, and have shown the ability to discuss zoning or have worked in other aspects of town in the past. To that end, former FinCom members have been well-versed in zoning, former select board members, maybe a current select board member. I don't know, but all of those people, I think, bring an interesting perspective to this. And in the end, what we're trying to do is best serve our town. So I would welcome any opportunity for somebody who has shown a desire to work within our town to better our town and not just themselves. And this is not an individual thing. This is for our town. So I think it's fair to say we're kind of throwing a big net out there. But at the end of the day, I really don't think this working group needs to be any bigger than 9 or 10 people in total. I think if you get much bigger than that, it's going to be unwieldy and you won't come up with a decision. So that's in the end, what we want to come out with this is a decision and something that the planning board and possibly the select board could move forward with in the form of an article.
I might suggest one other sort of constituency group to think about being part of that is, the business community in the affected areas potentially.
Absolutely.
I don't know if that makes sense for it to be someone from like a chamber or whatever, but something for us to consider as well.
All right. I can also share this at our trick meetings to see if there's any other towns have recently addressed this issue. That's the Three Rivers Interlocal Council, because they have people from Canton, Dedham, Norwood, the surrounding communities, and see if anybody from there has covered this issue or has had anything on this lately. Any other thoughts? Do we have anything else on the agenda this evening? Are there any other housekeeping items or?
Nope, that's it.
All right, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Mr. Paff made a motion to adjourn and Mr. Gotti seconded. Mr. Paff, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Ms. Conant
Yes.
and Mr. Gotti,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So we are adjourned. Thank
Yeah,
you.
before you hang up, am I on?
Yep.
Before you hang up, maybe we could have a call, you, me, and Abby, to talk about getting some of your, a way we can get some of your questions answered. It's, I understand, I think I understand what you're trying to do, and I'd like to try and get as much information about it too as possible.
You know, we could, if we could all drop off the call except for the one or two that, you know, like we could, if that's helpful right now, since we've got everybody in the room. Like we could we could get rid of the quorum, right? And then just who do you want to talk to, Pat?
No, I've spoken my piece. I need a phone call with Abby and Ms. Conant. And I've been in meetings since 5 o'clock, and I would like to get a little dinner before it gets too late, to be brutally honest with you. I can't eat at 4:30.
I'll drop off. Good night, everyone.
I'm dropping off as well.
Okay.
All right.
All right.